Welcome back to PRN Test Drive. I'm James, and this is the 2025 Mazda CX-50 Hybrid. I think that this version of the Mazda CX-50, the hybrid one, is the one that I would want to go with and the only one I would really want to look at anyways. I just think the hybrid market is so valuable now, and I love the fact that Mazda is entering it. Now, the CX-50 gets even better because we have the heart, the drivetrain of the Toyota RAV4. It is the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine that's going to give us 219 horsepower, 163 pound-feet of torque that we find in a Toyota RAV4. I just think that is the way to go because you get the ultimate reliability from Toyota with the Mazda packaging, because the design and the suspension tuning, everything in between is all Mazda. Now, I've also got 3 electric motors. We've got the eCVT, just like the RAV4, and I've got an all-wheel drive system, which in this winter weather, as you can see I'm standing in right now, has been very, very useful. Now, Mazda did make some slight tweaks to accommodate for the hybrid battery pack, but to the naked eye, you're really not going to notice it. I actually rolled up to the press car lot, saw this Mazda CX-50 Hybrid parked next to a non-hybrid CX-50, and I honestly could not tell the difference other than the badge telling me that this one was the hybrid and the other one didn't have the badge, so that must have been the non-hybrid. And I think that's great because Mazda still has a design that's pretty sporty, and I honestly like it a little bit more than the RAV4. I like the way that the 19-inch alloy wheels look. I like the fact that we have an automatic tailgate. I like the side design. I like it all. I think it's very, very good. I like our little daytime running lights, and I like those little amber lights on the bottom. We've got 360-degree cameras, which is very useful, but not really needed because this is a relatively small SUV. You can see that the SUV, it looks small and compact, but on the inside, it's got a surprising amount of room in both the rear and the trunk. The trunk space is one of those things that really surprised me when I opened it. I really was not expecting to have as much trunk space as I do. It is really well done back there. So overall, exterior-wise, really no huge changes, but that is perfectly fine because I have absolutely no problem. I think it's a relatively sporty, and it still looks a little bit like your family SUV, and I think that's the market they're going for. So it's really cold out, so before my ears absolutely burn off from frostbite, let me take you through a little bit of the interior. All right, so sitting inside the Mazda CX-50 Hybrid in the driver's seat, a very nice place to spend time. So let's go over it. So I've got the basic Mazda steering wheel. I've got heated seats, heated steering. The one complaint I have with the heated steering is that it's only on these two sides of my steering wheel, which is not ideal. So when I want to drive like this, my hands are cold. But so basically I always have to keep my hands right here. Not a huge thing, maybe not a huge deal for some people, but I like more steering wheels that have, evenly distributed heating, especially when it's super cold here out in Canada. It gets brutal. But I do like the physical buttons that I've got here. I really am not a fan of the haptic stuff. If you've watched any of my reviews, you know that. So very nice to see Mazda still including our physical buttons. Over all the way to my left-hand side, I actually have 2 memory seat settings. Again, something that comes with our GSL trim. And I've got the button for my 360-degree parking view. I've also got parking sensors, buttons, and stuff like that over there. Nice and easy to understand. I've got a trip button that's like right next to, the gauge cluster, as well as the brightness controls are also going to be right next to that gauge cluster. Now, speaking of the gauge cluster, I still enjoy the mix of the analog and digital, although I feel like here in 2025, that's going to start to become or seem a little bit dated. Now, basically across the board with Mazdas, or at least all the Mazdas that I have driven, it's always been this exact same thing. You kind of have the digital screen in the big gauge cluster circle, and then the other ones are always analog, which I've never really minded, but it would just be nice to see Mazda update this system, at least in their top trim, to something fully digital and maybe a little bit more customizable. It's the same situation with our digital infotainment display. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the knob. That's how you control this infotainment system most of the time. It can and does become a touchscreen once you're in Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but really the screen is so far away from me when I'm sitting in my driver's seat that I simply just don't touch it at all. I always use the knob, and I can't hate on the knob. I use it for everything when I'm driving. It's very easy to just use and click, and it kind of doesn't distract you as much as a touch screen. I just wish that, Mazda kind of overhauled the software, maybe gave it a little bit of a look. But what's really good about the infotainment display, the gauge cluster, is it's a very much plug-and-play system. You hop in the car, you turn it on, and you basically know where everything is because there's no sub-menus, there's no menus really about anything. You kind of click on something and boom, you're there. Even in the settings, there isn't that many crazy settings to go through, and the settings you want are not hidden. It would be nice to see a slight refresh software and tech-wise in the CX-50 platform and just in Mazda's platform in general. The Bose sound speakers are very good. Like I said, on the exterior, really, really nice. I have no problem with that. We also have dual zone automatic climate control back here. No climate control for the rear, but there is vents back there, so no problem there. And they're also heated seats. So look, my passengers have definitely not been complaining about that this week. I've also got ventilated seats up here. Absolutely not using it at this time of year, of course, but in the summer, it does get quite hot here in Montreal, so will be something that I will use. I've got a nice amount of storage, good amount of cup holders, a standard shifter, again, very easy to understand and use. I do have, drive modes. I've got a power and I've got a trail and I've got a normal, which is another thing that I just didn't understand. I guess the normal mode is also the eco mode because there's no dedicated eco mode. This is the most economical version of the Mazda CX-50 that you can get, but there's no eco mode to drive in. It's an interesting one. I also have an EV button. So when I click that button, the car will basically shut off the engine if it has enough power in the battery and try to drive solely on, the electric power of the hybrid engine. The only thing is of course, as most hybrids do, if you hit the gas too hard, it's going to kick on the gas engine pretty much right away. So most of the time on the highway, I'm always using the gas engine, but no problem there because you don't feel the switch over. So that's very nice. I got a little bit of storage in my center console, 2 USB ports. If you want to use wired Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you're going to have to connect a USB-C cable in there. The seats are the last thing that I want to touch on, and the thing that I kind of have, a little bit of a problem with, because I guess seat comfort is very subjective. It's body types, it's different things like that. And I just feel like the CX-50, from the second I got in, I could not adjust the seat to be fully comfortable. I feel like after a while, these seats would not fit my back at all. I feel like there's this bubble right where my legs are, right where my thighs sit, that I just can't adjust for some reason. And I don't think it's lumbar support. I've kind of played with the seat in every which way I can. And I think it's just my body doesn't fit the seat. And that's not to say that the ride quality is not great, because it's decent, but I just don't find these seats comfortable. And I've never been able to adjust it to where I get it comfortable. I say that at this point of the week, we're near the end of the week, I'm used to it. I'm not necessarily the most comfortable in it, if that makes sense. But again, seating and seating comfort and seating position and all those things are very, very subjective. So on that point, I urge you to go and actually sit in one before you just, say, oh my God, I can't believe that, the seats are not comfortable. That's a subjective opinion. You got to go check it out for yourself. But overall, I like the design of the interior. Not a lot of, crazy different materials. There's some nice orange stitching that kind of splits things up. But again, it's Mazda. It's in an affordable segment, and I'll take that to the bank every single day. So let's get this thing onto the road. It's not snowing anymore, but there is still a little bit of snow on the ground. So let's take it on the road, and I'll tell you all about how it drives. All right, so out on the road now, CX-50 Hybrid, and the snow is kind of coming down a little bit. I mean, it's more slush than anything right now that's out on the road, but either way, no matter what it seems to do or be outside, whatever surface is on the road, this Mazda CX-50 all-wheel drive system handles it super well. It might be the all-wheel drive system combined with the hybrid system that's making things feel so good and so smooth. But I don't know, I have a feeling that, it's a perfect mix of both, but obviously invest in good winter tires. That's going to make the difference, even if you have a car that has good all-wheel drive. I think the perfect blend is what I've got right here. I've kind of been able to, to keep up pretty much normal speed, and I really haven't been sliding. When I have the traction control on, and I'll go into a parking lot and I'll try to make the car slip a little bit. The traction control is so good at figuring out where the car needs more power. I just can't get it to slide around without turning my traction control off, which can't always be said for vehicles even with all-wheel drive. So that's really good news as well. And I do have, a little bit of power, more power than, something like a base CX-50, because we've got the hybrid. So let's be safe, but let's give it a little bit of gas here. Yeah, Nothing crazy, you know, nothing that I'm like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. Not at all, but perfectly easy to get up to highway speeds, to pass slower traffic. All of that is going to be no problem whatsoever. It's a nice and smooth pickup as well. The one thing that does give it away that this is a Toyota engine is that when you do step on the gas, it really does drone quite a bit. Like it's quite a loud engine. It doesn't seem like it enjoys being floored, which I feel like a lot of the Toyota engines that I've driven over my time has also been the case, where if you slam on it, it just makes this really loud noise. It doesn't really do anything. That's the only part that gives away that Toyota, because the handling is absolutely Mazda. The suspension is absolutely Mazda. Like I said, I couldn't get comfortable in these driver seats, but that doesn't mean the ride quality is bad, because the ride quality has actually been quite decent. I actually really enjoyed my time, you know, just riding around on bumpy roads, on winter roads too, which are, you know, Quebec roads, and then you add winter on top of it, is horrendous. So this has done a really good job at navigating all of that. Handling is very good, especially when you actually load up on some steering. It feels quite nimble, actually. It's just that off-center kind of steering that does kind of feel a little bit more dead. What I mean by off-center was when you're going in a straight line, you kind of wiggle the steering wheel like left and right. There's not a lot of feedback there. But again, not a sports car, not something that I think the average consumer would really know. But yeah, like, see, when I do this, there's not a whole lot of predictability in that. But obviously when you turn, when you actually get the car turned, you have all the control in the world, which in the winter I think is the more important part. And again, you're not buying this because, you know, you want to light up the track times. You're buying this because you want to go point A to point B comfortably, and you know, you're going to save a couple of bucks at the pump, and that is never a bad thing. I think the CX-50, even in its top trim, is pretty competitively priced as well. I think it's going to last you a long time because you've got Toyota reliability. I'm pretty sure their hybrids have been pretty reliable as well. Their hybrid tech has been, Toyota has been doing hybrids for a very long time with the Prius. So they know what they're doing. They know what, you know, they're getting themselves into with this kind of thing. So it makes perfect sense why Mazda would want to use that technology in their CX-50 hybrid, because it's going to last, and it's nice to see manufacturers kind of invest in that. Now, personally, I think I would actually take the Mazda CX-50 hybrid over the RAV4. They share the same engine. I just feel like the styling, interior even, and exterior is just way better the way that Mazda does it. I just feel Mazda is a little bit more sporty oriented, whereas Toyota is more family oriented, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, both excellent vehicles. You're going to have a good time in either one of them. I just think my choice is Mazda, purely based on design. You can see there, I was actually sliding a little bit in the slush and crap, but the traction control picks you right back up. It straightens the car right back out with almost zero hesitation. It's so solid. Driving this thing in the winter has been so easy. And I've had to, you know, I pretty much have to go into the office every single day this week. So like, there's been not a lot of work from home. I don't have a long commute, but I mean, when it's snowing and like doing all this garbage and it's dark out because I leave really early in the morning, then it's like, you know, you want to have confidence in your vehicle. And the CX-50 hybrid has impressed me. I really didn't think when I got into this, I thought I would have to manage things a little bit more, but it is really, really surprisingly good. What a good job. This thing will keep you safe in the winter. I can pretty much say that. You really have to do something exceptionally dumb to really get yourself into a problem with this all-wheel drive system and my tire setup. I think I've got the Michelin X Ices on here, which are, you know, no problem. I really never have a problem with these snow tires. You know, it is expensive, don't get me wrong, but please invest in some good ones because it will make your life so much better. So I mentioned in the beginning that, or on the interior tour, that I could actually press this EV button and it'll kick the car into EV mode, right? And that makes it really good for like mall crawling and stuff like that, because you can't go really too fast on it. So let's come to a full stop here and let's press my EV mode button. So there's going to be some traffic that might harass me, but that's completely fine. We're going to just turn, kind of go slowly, and, you know, slowly on the accelerator. I'm up to 25, 26, 27, 30 kilometers, still in full EV mode. And there we go. Around the 35 kilometer range, it kicks on my gas engine. So most of the time, you know, you're in the gas engine. But if you're like mall crawling, getting groceries, stuff like that, it's probably gonna kick off the engine. And the beauty of it is I don't even feel when it kicks on or kicks off the engine. The only reason I know is because it gives me a little signal when I'm in EV mode that says, you know, you exceeded the speed or you pressed the gas too heavy, you know, I turned on the engine. So that's the only time. And I don't really notice when it shuts off either. So when I'm braking, the engine is actually shutting off, putting me into EV mode until I accelerate again, and then you can hear the engine again. It's very nice. It's just, I think it's gonna really make it excellent for your errand runs. And that's the perfect thing. Like I said, this is a car I think that people are gonna want to get to own, maybe not so much lease, which is perfectly fine, because I think if you've got a Toyota engine, you will have the reliability and the lasting long techniques, the long lasting techniques that Toyota give their customers, and then that makes them such a popular brand for that reason, and I completely understand it. So that's gonna do it for my thoughts for the CX-50 Hybrid. Let me know what you think in the comment. Are you gonna get the hybrid? Are you in the market? How do you feel about Mazda taking the Toyota engine? I wanna know what you think about it all. So with all that being said, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe here for more vehicles from all of us on PRN Test Drive, and I will see you in the next week. See you in the next car. Take care.